There's a moment that almost every Virgo knows and rarely talks about, the moment when you notice something that no one else has noticed yet. A small inconsistency, a shift in energy, a phrase that doesn't quite fit with what was said before. The moment when your internal system registers something and you, consciously, decide not to retrieve that information from the archive. Not because he didn't know, but because he knows too much to act quickly enough. And while everyone else continues the conversation normally, you're keeping watch, observing, completing the dossier. Because there is a mechanism that Virgo operates without realizing it. A pressure field that she creates simply by knowingly existing. And this field, given enough time, does something that seems impossible. It forces confessions from people who never intended to confess anything. Not for the fight, not for the confrontation, for the most precious strategic silence there is. And the price that the Virgin pays for this, and the extraordinary gift that lies at the heart of it all, is what this video has come to reveal. There was a phrase she heard, and something stirred within her. Not like an alarm, but like that feeling you get when you're walking at night and realize you've taken the wrong path. Nothing visible, nothing you can point to, just a quiet, almost bodily certainty that settles in your chest before any thought even arrives to name it. And she remained quiet. This is what nobody understands about Virgo. The image that circulates is that of a critical, demanding person who analyzes everything and questions everyone. But there is something much earlier than this outward behavior, something that happens before any word is spoken, before any confrontation, even before any conscious decision. There is a moment when Virgo simply knows and chooses to keep it to themselves. It's not hesitation, it's not fear of conflict, it's instinctive strategy. It's the result of a mind that learned very early on that reacting at the moment of perception is wasting its greatest advantage: time. Then she smiled. She continued the conversation. She asked one more thing, seemingly out of curiosity, but actually to confirm what she had already registered. And the other person answered without knowing that he was adding another piece to the file that was being built in real time inside her head. Have you ever experienced this? Felt something you couldn't quite name yet, but that wouldn't leave you? That feeling that something doesn't fit, that a story has a gap that won't close, that a person is being slightly different from who they claim to be? If you're a Virgo, the answer is almost certainly yes. And if you know a Virgo well, there's a very good chance she already knows things about you that she'll never mention, at least not yet. Because Virgo doesn't operate on other people's timeline. It operates on the timeline of truth, and truth, it has learned, always comes to light. It doesn't need to chase after it. It only needs to be in a position to see when the moment arrives. What most people don't understand is that this isn't coldness. It isn't calculation. It's a particular kind of love for reality, so intense that Virgo prefers to bear the weight of knowing in silence rather than spoil something with a premature accusation. She respects the truth too much to use half-truths as a weapon, but carrying this burden comes at a cost. And that cost is what we're going to dissect today. Because there's a mechanism within Virgo that works like no other sign. An inner laboratory that never shuts down, never takes a vacation, never simply lets things slide. And when that laboratory accumulates enough evidence, when the file becomes too heavy, when the internal pressure reaches a certain point, something happens that seems almost impossible to explain to an outsider. Someone is forced to confess. Not because the Virgin screamed, not because she threatened, not because she presented evidence like a prosecutor, but because existing in front of the Virgin with a lie inside you eventually becomes unbearable. And the question that remains is, how? How can someone who does nothing create such irresistible pressure? The answer lies in what happens inside the laboratory. And it's more disturbingly beautiful than you imagine. Within Virgo, there is a processing system that operates continuously and almost involuntarily. It doesn't choose to analyze, it simply cannot help but analyze. Every human interaction generates data. Each piece of data is automatically compared to the established standard. Every deviation is recorded, not obsessively, almost poetically, like a musician listening to an orchestra and effortlessly noticing that the second violin played a wrong note in the third measure. The whole orchestra heard it, but only he registered it. Not because he was paying more attention, but because his auditory system has been trained over the years to capture exactly that kind of detail. Virgos are like that when it comes to human behavior. And what she does with these records is what sets her apart from any other sign of the zodiac. She doesn't act immediately, she files them away. She creates an internal dossier, not consciously and deliberately, but as a natural result of a mind that connects patterns even before asking permission from itself. Over time, the dossier grows thicker. That small inconsistency from last month, the change of subject happened too quickly, the detail that doesn't match what was said before. Each piece alone means nothing, but together they form such a clear picture that Virgo sometimes has difficulty understanding why everyone around isn't seeing the same thing. And this is where the wait begins, because Virgo didn't ask to know. No one came to her and said, "Do you want to bear the responsibility of noticing what others are hiding?" It simply happened. It's part of her internal structure, as natural as breathing, as involuntary as her heartbeat. But unsolicited truths are weighed in a very specific way. They have no one to share them with. They lack the social context to be spoken. Virgo can't simply come out and say, "Look, I know," because no one will believe you without proof. And presenting proof before the right moment is wasting everything that has been built with so much care. Then she carries it. And carrying unsolicited truths creates a form of loneliness that is difficult to name. It's the loneliness of living at a level of clarity that few people around you can match. It's the loneliness of seeing what's coming before it happens and being unable to do anything but wait. Here's the point that's going to hit you hard now. Virgo doesn't just know about others. She knows about herself too. She knows when she's being used. She knows when a relationship is coming to an end before the other person realizes it. She knows when something she herself did wasn't as honest as it should have been. And yet sometimes she continues, because knowing isn't the same as being ready. And Virgo, with all her analytical skills, isn't immune to how much it hurts when what she knows involves something she loves. This is the moment when the laboratory ceases to be merely an advantage and also becomes a place of confinement. Because when Virgo knows and still stays, what she is choosing to carry is not just the truth of others. It is her own vulnerability, wrapped in the silence she has built as protection. It was while searching for answers to this that I found this digital book, The Divine Path, that guides your zodiac sign to a life of purpose. And what surprised me wasn't the astrology itself. It was what it revealed about the inner workings of Virgo that she herself rarely manages to see from within. There's a difference between analyzing everything around you and being able to look at yourself with the same clarity. This book acts as a high-resolution mirror for exactly that. The patterns Virgo has built internally, how she uses what she knows to protect herself, and how to transform that ability into something that doesn't weigh her down so much. Something that becomes real strength, not just silent survival. You are now in a very specific moment, still processing what was said, recognizing within yourself something you've always felt but never knew how to name. This discomfort that is active now won't go away on its own. And when a Virgo finally finds a space of genuine clarity, something changes permanently. This is the right moment, not when you're calmer, not when the video ends, now while it's still alive within you. The link is in the first pinned comment, but be aware, this content may be taken down. Click now and download your copy. And before we continue, tell me in the comments, has there ever been a time when you knew something long before you had any proof, and you kept it to yourself without knowing what to do? I want to read what you're going to write. But let's return to the laboratory, because what happens when it accumulates enough evidence is one of the most fascinating phenomena in Virgo psychology, and also the most misunderstood by those on the outside. Virgos don't explode, they don't shout, they don't confront openly most of the time. What they do is much more subtle and much more powerful. They begin to take a stand. Imagine how a room works where the air is being slowly removed. No one sees the air leaving. No one can pinpoint the moment it started. But those inside feel it, a slightly different pressure, a growing difficulty breathing as easily as before, a sensation that something has changed, even though nothing visible has changed. Virgo creates this. Unintentionally most of the time, it's a natural result of someone who knows and doesn't act as if they don't. The energy shifts, the attention shifts, the questions become slightly different. The silence after a sentence lasts a second longer, nothing that can be cited as evidence, but everything that can be felt. And those who have something to hide feel it before they understand what they are feeling. Because the human mind is very good at detecting relational inconsistencies. When someone who has always responded in one way starts responding in another, the brain registers it, even if it takes time for the conscious mind to process it. And when the brain registers an inconsistency in a person who clearly understands a lot, anxiety begins to kick in. The other person doesn't know what Virgo knows, but they begin to suspect that she does. And this suspicion, fueled by nothing but their own sense of guilt, grows, until it reaches a point where carrying the lie in front of Virgo costs more energy than confessing it. And then it happens, not as Virgo imagined it would, not at the moment she planned, but it happens. A casual phrase in a conversation that wasn't about that. A small admission that leads to another. A tear that appears before the other person understands why they're crying. The confession that nobody planned. This mechanism that Virgo operates, creating pressure without raising their voice, extracting truth without asking for confession, is one of the rarest and least understood gifts of the zodiac. And it is also one of the loneliest, because those who possess this power rarely find a map to understand where it came from and where it can lead them. The digital book, The Divine Path, that guides your zodiac sign to a life of purpose, goes precisely in that direction. Not to explain Virgo from the outside, but to offer a language for what she feels inside. For the mechanism that operates in the dark, building pressure without planning, for the gift that no one taught her to use consciously. Virgo always knew she had something different, but rarely found words for it that didn't make her seem intense or difficult. This book offers those words. The link is in the first pinned comment. The last copies are running out. Click now and begin your journey toward the clarity and genius you deserve. And when the confession finally comes, something unexpected happens within Virgo. It's not a victory, it's not immediate relief. It's a strange mix of I knew it and I wish I were wrong. Because Virgo, with all its analytical systems, all its capacity to build emotional dossiers, deep down always hoped that what it was recording was a misinterpretation. It wanted the data to be wrong. It wanted the inconsistency to be just its anxiety, just an old pattern, just a misreading. The confession confirms that it wasn't. And that has a specific weight that is very difficult to describe to someone who has never felt it. It's the weight of being right about something you wanted to be wrong about. It's the confirmation that the lab works. But at the same time, the confirmation that the world is sometimes exactly as complicated as you suspected it was. Virgo then does something that most people around her don't notice. She begins to process two things at the same time. The external reality that has just been confirmed, and the internal reality of having carried that alone for so long. Validation and grief walk hand in hand. Clarity and pain arrive in the same sentence. This moment, carrying validation and grief at the same time, is where Virgo most needs something that goes beyond analysis. Because the internal laboratory wasn't designed to process its own pain with the same efficiency as it processes the pain of others. Virgo analyzes the world with surgical precision, but when the scalpel points inward, the hand trembles. The digital book, the divine path that guides your zodiac sign to a life of purpose, addresses precisely this specific wound, the point where Virgo forgets itself while trying to understand everything around it. The point where the gift of perceiving too much transforms into emotional overload, and where external clarity coexists with an internal fog that it rarely admits to having. This is not a book of simple answers. It is an invitation for Virgo to use the same intelligence it applies to the world, to finally see itself with the same generosity. The link is in the first pinned comment. The last copies are running out. Click now and begin your journey toward the clarity and genius you deserve. Now we come to Virgo's most unsettling paradox, and its most beautiful. The person who values authenticity the most, who detects falsehood before anyone else, who builds extraordinarily precise emotional dossiers, that same person has a profound difficulty in being completely transparent about what they feel. It's not hypocrisy. It's a specific form of protection that Virgo has developed over time. Because when you're someone who notices everything, you also know exactly how much people can do with what you reveal. You know how vulnerability works. You've seen from the inside how others have used it in ways they shouldn't have. So you keep it to yourself. But by keeping things to herself, Virgo creates an internal vault, and over time, this vault becomes filled with things she herself has lost access to. Emotions that were filed away to be processed later and never retrieved. Words that sat in the queue for so long that they lost their way of being spoken. Needs that became so well packaged in analysis and understanding that Virgo sometimes needs a real effort to remember they are still there. And this is where Virgo's gift finds its darkest side. The same system that allows her to see others with extraordinary clarity can keep her distant from herself for years. The question the viewer needs to consider now isn't about the other person. It's about Virgo. What is she keeping inside her own vault that she hasn't yet found the courage, the moment, or the words to open? And there's something even deeper in all of this. Virgo, because of their keen perception, sometimes carries a feeling of being alone on a frequency that few can tune into. Not the loneliness of someone who has no people around, the loneliness of someone who has people around them, but rarely someone who is on the same level of perception. It's like being at a concert and being the only one who notices that the conductor is slightly out of sync with the orchestra. Everyone applauds, everyone is seeing the same concert, but you're seeing an extra layer, and there's no way to remove that layer from your vision, just as there's no way to stop hearing what you've heard. This is exhausting, in a way that Virgo rarely verbalizes, because verbalizing it would seem arrogant. It would seem like I'm better than you, which it isn't. It's not about being better, it's about being different in a way that subtly isolates. This loneliness of perceiving too much, of living at a frequency that the world around them rarely matches, is where many Virgos get stuck for long periods. Not because they don't want company, but because they haven't yet found a language for what they perceive that doesn't make them seem difficult, intense, or impossible to satisfy. The digital book, the divine path that guides your zodiac sign to a life of purpose, offers something Virgo rarely finds: the recognition that their frequency is not a flaw to be corrected, but an intelligence to be integrated. That the loneliness that comes from perceiving too much has a way out, not by perceiving less, but by learning to transform what they perceive into something that connects instead of isolating. that Virgo's inner laboratory can be a place of conscious power and not just silent heaviness. The link is in the first pinned comment. The last copies are running out. Click now and begin your journey towards the clarity and genius you deserve. And then we get to the heart of it all. Because after experiencing everything that Virgo carries, the laboratory that never shuts off, the dossier that keeps growing, the pressure it creates unintentionally, the confession it extracts without asking, the paradox of being transparent with everyone but itself, and the loneliness of living at a higher frequency, after all that, we arrive at the question that underlies it all. Why does Virgo do that? Why does she bother trying to understand so much? Why do you carry unsolicited truths? Why do you bear the weight of knowing before everyone else? Why don't you just switch off the system, relax, and let things be what they seem to be? The answer is simple and disturbingly beautiful, because Virgo loves reality, not in an abstract way, in a visceral way. She loves the world as it truly is, with all its complexity, with all its layers, with all the distance between what people say they are and what they actually are. She loves the truth with an intensity that few people can sustain. And when someone is finally forced to confess before Virgo, what she is not doing is winning a battle. She is restoring reality. She is removing a layer of falsehood that hurt. Not because it hurt her personally, but because it distorted the world she loves. Imagine an art restorer, someone who spends hours, days, sometimes weeks, removing layers of paint that have been applied over the original artwork over the centuries. Not because they hate the layers, but because they know that beneath them lies something real, something that deserves to exist undisguised. And when the last layer is removed and the original appears, what the restorer feels is not pride, it's relief. The artwork has returned to being itself. Virgos are like that with the people they love, and that's the most important thing this video came to say. Virgo's distrust isn't paranoia, it's not trauma. It's not difficult to trust. It's a form of love so deep for authenticity that she prefers the discomfort of knowing to the comfort of pretending not to know. She prefers the truth, even when it hurts, even when it isolates, even when it comes too late to avoid the pain. If you are a Virgo, what you carry is not a burden. It is a form of brutal love that the world rarely recognizes as such. The laboratory that works non-stop is not a prison. It is a way of honoring the reality that has come to you in all its complexity. And when someone finally confesses in front of you, when the pressure you didn't even know you were creating makes the truth come out, what you're feeling isn't power, it's peace. The peace of a world that has regained its meaning. The peace of someone who loved reality enough to wait for it to appear. This is Virgo, not in the way astrology books describe it, but in the way you feel when you're alone and honest with yourself in the dark, knowing you perceive too much, carry more than you should, and yet are unable to do otherwise. Because deep down, somewhere beyond signs and stars, Virgo believes that truth deserves to exist, and that it, you, deserves a world that is real.